Welcome to episode 5 of Timm Talk, the podcast about the DC animated universe co-created by Bruce Timm. I'm Chris Lord.
I'm Cameron Dexter.
And today it's all about Two-Face. So it's episodes 10 and 11, Two-Face.
Part 1 and 2.
And 2, of course, because there's a shitload of 2s in this. I'd say this episode, even right from the beginning, is pretty damn good.
It's definitely the best we've watched so far.
And it's funny, too, because as I was doing research for it, one of the notes I found was that the writers felt like this was the first episode that really gelled, that it all came together, that the tone was set right, all the characters were working right, the visuals were right, and that it kind of set the bar and the tone for everything moving on. Did you kind of get that feeling a little bit, like, as you were watching it?
Yeah, a little bit, especially because I watched the next 2 as well for next week's episode. And it almost leads in, like, the next episode kind of follows this perfectly. And
it's never too late.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, this is like, I mean, we're gonna obviously dive into this pretty deep, but
so
just
deep.
seeing
just so deep.
Just seeing Batman, like, this is kind of the first time he failed on a global standard, and you see that repercussion. It's a second parent murder.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. It is. He does fail, and as we'll see as we go through the episode, there's a nice little tie back.
Mm-hmm.
Excuse me, a tie back to his parents. And let's just
get started.
Let's just jump into it.
We've got a lot to say on this.
We do. We absolutely do. So it starts out with a dream sequence. Cameron,
Yes.
What happens in the dream sequence?
We start off, and it's Harvey's dream sequence. This is all about Harvey Dent at the beginning, and kind of in this nice contrast in the shadows, you see a figure. You don't see the face of the figure, but you see a figure flipping the coin, and Harvey, who's standing across from him, is freaking out. No context, and the figure, he's saying, it's time, it's time, it's time. Then he wakes up, and it's his assistant. It's like, hey, the raid's about to start. And you find out that Harvey has been planning this raid for a couple months, that's about to bust Thorne. What's his first name?
Rupert Thorne.
Rupert Thorne.
Yeah, who in the animated series kind of takes on the role usually occupied by Carmine Falcone or Sal Maroni. Mm-hmm. So they kind of did a kind of combination of those two. And actually, I was kind of curious about Thorne. So what other, was the original character for the show? What was his origin? So I looked him up, and I guess his first appearance was in May of '77. He's actually very different in the comics than he is in this. In the comics, he's just a corrupt politician running for mayor who kind of gets caught up with a scheme with Hugo Strange. So I thought that was interesting, that he wasn't a crime boss in the traditional sense. And then when they came around to the animated series, they needed a crime boss, they chose that name. And I couldn't find a reason why.
I think it's because Harvey just doesn't like plant-based names. So you've got Poison Ivy and now Rupert Thorne, and he's just got a thing against.
He can't catch a break.
Yeah.
Well, he's not going to catch any soon, certainly. But yeah, so we got Rupert Thorne, who's got like some ammo or something like that stashed away in a warehouse.
Yeah, he's got a rocket launcher stored away.
Yeah,
because it's a kid's cartoon. Rocket launchers are everywhere.
Yeah, in a weird way. Do you think rocket launchers are better for cartoons because they seem slightly less violent? Like in real life, obviously they're horrifically dangerous, but they're kind of cartoonish in their own rights.
Well, I guess my favorite moment with a rocket launcher, which is a weird tangent we have right now, is, do you remember the Vin Diesel XXX movie from 2003?
I do. I have a soft spot for it, actually.
I love that movie, and it's the moment where the villain is shooting them from a rifle position, and they're like, we can't get a good angle on him, and Vin Diesel comes up, he's like, does this thing have heat? What is it? Heat detection?
Yeah, heat-seeking missiles. Yeah.
He's like, well, what does he say? Like, drop the military knowledge and pick up a PlayStation. And he just fires the rocket launcher.
It is a great moment. It's a cheesy movie, but I really enjoy it, actually.
Sequel's coming soon.
I have no interest, and that looks fucking terrible.
I'll go see it for both of us.
Okay, you do that for me. Tell me how it is. So we'll have a side tangent on whatever podcast happens at that time.
Right.
Yeah, we'll have our XXX minute then. But it's that. So when Harvey heads out to the raid where Gordon is there,
Gordon, Bullock, and they just called in the SWAT team to capture the goons that are stuck up in this military compound.
And that whole scene, that's a great scene. Like I feel like there was another episode that was very reminiscent of Batman's raid of the warehouse from year one.
Wasn't that not Man-Bat, not Joker?
Scarecrow? Never Fear?
I don't remember, to be honest.
Let's say it was Never Fear.
Yeah.
But great scene in this, too, where, again, he kind of goes in and he sneaks in from behind. He's kind of taking them out one by one.
Mm-hmm.
Whenever I see this sort of stuff now, I can't help but think about the Arkham games.
Right.
And it almost makes me appreciate them that much more. Like, they nailed the dynamic so well of, like, sneaking around and taking people out the way that the character does so well in this show. But it's a fun scene.
Yeah, it's the usual. It has its little campiness where he, just taps the guy on the shoulder and then drags him into the shadows. And
again, his flair for the dramatic.
Always.
We get a henchman who gets knocked out the window and lands on an awning.
Wasn't there two?
There's probably a couple of them. Yeah, I have in my notes, awning!
Yep.
Exclamation point.
And then they just run out because
they do.
I guess going to prison is easier than dealing with the Batman.
It is. Oh, it definitely is. Yeah, so, so they break up the raid, or they break up the gang or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
God, where do we go from there?
Harvey is giving his speech to the press about...
That's right.
He's reelected for...
He's running for the reelection.
Right, so he's running for reelection and talking about how he's going to dethorn the city. Gotta love his... Honestly, I think that's why they chose that villain, just for the pun.
Just for the pun. You know what? I wouldn't put it past him.
He's going to dethrone the city. And as he's giving the speech, one of the goons behind him is, not having Harvey Dent. So he kicks some mud up on his suit. And we see the first instance of Big Bad Harv come out. Harvey completely loses it, kind of cuts his interview while the cameras are still on him, charges towards the goon, throws him against the car, throws him on the ground, and is about to just beat the shit out of him when, not Bullock, Gordon comes and stops him. He looks up, he turns back to himself, looks up, cameras are still on him, he's freaking out, and they just head out after that, right?
Yeah, I think he's like, oh, sorry, everybody.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to go.
But from the next scene, it sounded like people were saying that he was going to use that to his advantage. Like, he just got a bunch of voters from that.
Yeah, we go from there to Thorne in his house,
mm-hmm.
and one of his goons makes a comment like, oh, Dent's so crazy, and, the use of the cliche phrase, crazy like a fox. But Thorne's point is that Harvey is, like, so driven and, like, so mad to, like, prevent crime that he's just going to get more voters. What happens next? I can barely read my own notes. We're both super tired right now. This doesn't help. But yeah, so on the news broadcast is saying he's got a new nickname of Hot-Headed Harv. So we're starting to see a little bit of
the dual personalities.
Yeah, the darker side come through. And I think from there we go to a campaign party, right, at Wayne Manor.
Well, at Thorne's place, they're trying to figure out how to blackmail him.
Yeah, because they don't want to just kill him. They need him.
Well, yeah, because if they kill him, then it's obvious that it's him.
Yes, they need him on Thorne's payroll to make everything easier.
Right.
So we're at the campaign party.
Hosted by the Waynes.
Hosted by Bruce, who's a good friend of Harvey's. Mm-hmm. Harvey's running for re-election. He gives some speech. We see that he's got a fiance. We're not sure when they're going to get married, but it's coming up soon sometime.
Yeah, so seeing this moment, I like to think that no time has really passed between this and Poison Ivy. In my mind, Poison Ivy didn't actually, like, drug him at all. He's just he just wants to commit that much that after a week of knowing these people, he's like, I'm ready to marry them.
Yeah, he's a girlfriend guy.
Well, he's a fiance guy.
That's true. Oh, yeah, he's a fiance guy. That's worse.
How many rings do you think he's bought?
Oh, so many. Which, I mean, Gotham DA can't be making that much money. So is Bruce buying him a shitload of engagement rings? Is that how that works?
Or it's probably jewelry that the police confiscates.
Oh, then he just swoops it from the evidence locker? God, what a dick.
It's not just Batman, guys.
It's not just Batman's not the only dick in Gotham City. So what I did think was cool is that there are a lot of subtle little things they do to kind of help set the tone for the episode. One of my favorite things is when we first cut to the party, there's a giant ice sculpture of the blind
justice, yeah.
And it looks like it's sweating. Like,
mm-hmm.
That was a small little moment I thought was really great. And then it's followed up with a super on the nose moment when Harvey snaps because he learns that the warrant won't hold up, basically. Mm-hmm. That it wasn't completed. The warrant falls through, so the bus is a waste. He charges that his assistant, knocks him into the table, and the ice sculpture falls and breaks. Like,
mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. Our metaphors are getting less subtle. But it's still another moment where he, like, rages out. And
our second appearance of Big Bad Harv.
Yeah, exactly. And this time it's in front of, a whole bunch of supporters. It's in front of his fiance. It's also in front of Bruce, who then follows him into the house and is super worried about him.
Well, it's also Harvey tries to attack Bruce.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Until girlfriend's name, Grace, thank you. Grace steps in and he calms himself. You learn that he's been seeing a therapist for the past couple months and that Bruce just wants to help in any way he can. If you look back through this series, Bruce has no friends.
He really doesn't.
If we look at all the people that he has been close to in his life, almost all of them are either dead or villains. Like, you have his parents, seem to be pretty good friends with them. You got Harvey Dent, kind of flipped. Oh my gosh, you're going to hit me for this. Who was Phantasm?
Oh, on Andrea Beaumont.
Yeah, villain.
/ from his perspective, maybe also dead.
So pretty much the only people who he has close are like Alfred, Dick,
who's off at college and is like, at least at this point, never around.
And then who we'll meet later. And him and Zatanna are pretty close most of the time.
That's true. He finally finds friends when he joins the Justice League. Yeah, they're all superpowered. It's like he's got his super friends around.
Oh, I wonder if they use that name at all.
Yeah, if not, they really should.
It's a pretty good name.
You know what? We've seen. Oh, damn it! I was gonna make a jab at Zack Snyder, and I've tried to dedicate myself to hold back on those.
Week 2 of no Snyder slashing.
Yeah, so I'm gonna gonna hold back. I'm not gonna say what I was gonna say, and that was pointless.
So we jump to his
he's with his doctor.
Session.
Yeah, right.
And his therapist hypnotizes him to bring out the dark Harvey.
Yeah, Big Bad Harv pulls out the coin, sits there all like scowly and slouched back in a deep gravelly voice.
Yeah, and that scene, like you said, is riddled with metaphors.
Yeah,
you have the stormy night going, which
lightning flashes. For a moment, we see the two-faced side of his face.
Yeah. I wrote down a lot about this.
I did too. I'm just not actually bothering to read my notes.
Big Bad Harv manifests under hypnosis. It's a very Bruce Banner Hulk kind of mentality where Big Bad Harv doesn't want regular Dent to be in control. I'm just going to refer to them as Harv and Dent.
That works perfectly fine. Yeah, if Dent can control his anger, Harv will go away, and so Harv can't have that. Yeah, and he like freaks out and like attacks the doctor and throws a lamp through the window and creates this big chaotic scene. And then the doctor snaps her fingers. He comes out of it and he's...
Well, if you even just go into the into the composition of those scenes, it's a very black and white scene set. Yeah. I mean, it's not white, but it's very highly contrasted. And the moment, that's kind of the metaphor of Harvey at that point. It's an equal balance of good and evil right now.
Yeah.
And then when Harv comes out and be like, I am going to be in control. He throws the chair through the window, and for a moment, the scene just goes black, and all of the light is kind of escaped through the room. And that is the moment, I think, when he's like, Big Bad Harv has more control than Dent does now.
No, it's interesting. Yeah. No, I think you're absolutely right. And so, yeah, it's escalating. Like, he's losing control. And Thorne's assistant, Candace, his right-hand woman, listening through what is apparently not a soundproof door at the therapist's office.
It's not important to have soundproof doors.
No. So she hears all of this, and so now she like knows what his weakness is.
Yeah, she found the button.
And so now we're at an election party. And it's a little unclear. When I watched this through the first time, it made it seem like it was election night, and that the results were coming back and it was in a landslide. What it seems like on a second viewing is that he's not actually elected yet, but maybe that the polls are showing a landslide.
Okay.
I'm not quite sure because, right after this, Thorne tries to blackmail Harvey. And my thought was, well, if he's already won, does that matter as much? But maybe he hasn't actually won the election.
Having the district attorney is probably a pretty good person to have in your pocket.
Well, I meant more like, if Harvey had won the election in a landslide, I feel like that would lessen the
power.
Stakes. Yeah, it would lessen the control. So I guess maybe he's not quite there yet. I guess there's still room for him to lose his campaign, I assume.
Okay.
I don't know.
Well, at the party, he's very confident in himself. He told his girlfriend, Grace, that he's going to propose. Because every time we see him, he's got to propose to someone new. Yeah. And he gets a phone call from Thorne saying that they need to talk. Thorne knows about Big Bad Harv at this point. And so Dent leaves his party. Bruce tries to stop him. Bruce tries to help because, again, it's his only friend. And when he realizes Bruce can't do anything about it, he puts on the cowl and he decides Batman has to intervene now. Mm-hmm. So they go over to Thorne's hideout, and they have that...
Which is some sort of chemical warehouse.
Because everything's in a chemical warehouse. If we learn anything about the way Gotham is set up, it's either an armory or a chemical warehouse. It's kind of all they have going for them.
Well, it is important.
Or like a carnival.
Oh, that's true.
Like
there's abandoned carnivals, lots of warehouses, lots of chemical plants. Everything has to be flammable, right? As we've seen, at some point, all locations have to go up in flames. So there's only so many options you got for that. So we're at another chemical plant. Well, actually, you know what? This makes sense too, because probably every other chemical plant is closed. They got to open up a new one. Crime swoops in, takes it over.
A supervillain emerges.
Yeah, thriving chemical business in Gotham. Yeah, so they're there. Thorne shows Dent the file. I'm going to blackmail you.
We learn about this version of why Dent is suppressing his anger, which is a little different from the comics, but I think we're going to go into that.
Yeah, we'll go
later.
into that at the end. But yeah, why don't you talk about what his kind of background is in this one? It's kind of interesting.
Basically, as a child, he had small anger problems, and he would beat up kids in his school, and then one day he beats up this one kid, and he learns that he goes to the hospital, and Dent blames himself, and because of that, he started to suppress his anger and kind of all of his aggression.
We've also learned that the kid had an appendicitis. It was pure coincidence, but the damage was done for Harvey, and he's afraid of his anger, so he just buries it really deep.
And that kind of inner turmoil turned into Big Bad Harv, and so that created the dual personality. And right as Thorne thought that he'd won this, we have that same super contrasted shot where you kind of only see half his face, and Harv looks at Thorne. He's like, yeah, you make a good point, but you have one problem. You're talking to the wrong Harvey.
Oh, shit.
We have our Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde moment. And for some reason, Big Bad Harv has super strength. We're not going to go into that, I guess.
Yeah, but super strength, cat-like reflexes, very athletic. He has a really graceful high leap off the desk to pounce on top of Thorne.
So
Olympic career just ruined. Yeah.
Look what happens when you channel your anger into things, guys.
That's true. Well, also, let's be honest, even if he were like some sort of Olympic athlete, anyone who lives in Gotham City who has any sort of skill set is going to become either a villain or a hero. Mm-hmm. We know where he was going.
He was a little too old to be Robin, so he had to be a villain.
That's true. Well, unless he's in the movie universe, then he's perfectly the right age for it.
Any age is a good age for Robin. Yeah. You're either Robin or Alfred. Those are your two choices.
It's not weird when you adopt like a 25-year-old kid to come live at your house.
No, it's fine. He likes motorcycles. It's okay.
Yeah.
So Big Bad Harv has emerged. He's fighting off all the goons. Batman is there, and he jumps in to intervene, helping Harvey kind of fight the goons. Thorne runs into the chemical area. Harvey follows. And in a very similar setup to all of Batman's villains. I guess just Joker. Who else is in a chemical explosion? A couple of them.
More, I'm assuming.
Harvey is running after. A goon follows with a Tommy gun, and Batman. Oh, a point that I was going to make. I forgot about this point. While Batman is fighting with Harvey, if you listen, Kevin Conroy is using his Bruce voice.
Oh, I had the same note. So back at Wayne Manor, right? Wait, no.
In this fight scene when he's with Harvey trying to stop Thorne,
okay,
he dips into his Bruce voice.
Okay, right. Because I had noticed that back at Wayne Manor when Bruce is talking to Harvey and trying to calm him down, like, "Hey, are you okay?" He's using like that third voice. He's not using the overly inflected Bruce Wayne voice, nor is he all gravelly Batman. He's got that like his real voice, the one he talks to Alfred with. But you're right, yeah. Here he's like being a little bit softer because it's his friend. He's trying to calm him down.
And also the voice actor, whose name I just forgot.
Who does
Harvey?
I didn't write it down. So
Richard Mole.
Okay.
He also, in a very similar setup to Conroy, he also has kind of the two voices.
Right.
And you can hear, yeah. So, jumping back, Harvey is chasing down Thorne. Tommy gun pulls up behind him. Batman kind of knocks him down, and while he's knocking him down, he gets a couple shots off. Hits the very conveniently placed electrical box.
Right next to the open chemical pit.
Sparks fly out, hit the chemicals, explosion. building does not go down in flames, though.
That's true, actually. This is surprisingly non-flammable chemical plant.
We found one.
Combustible.
Yes.
Not flammable. Are those the same thing? Different things? I should know that, and I don't.
So Harvey gets hit in the explosion. Mm-hmm. Bruce freaks out.
Yeah, Thorne gets away.
Bruce freaks out, takes Harvey, and next we see into the hospital.
Yeah.
With very bad doctors, by the way.
I think all the doctors in Gotham are pretty shitty.
Yeah, because Bruce is hoarding all of the technology.
So it's not their fault.
Right.
It's his fault. But yeah, the doctor is basically saying like, oh, physical damage, can we repair a surgery? And Bruce worried about the mental scars. Mm-hmm. And then in a scene that's very much a direct homage to Tim Burton's first movie, when they're unwrapping Harvey's face, he's like demanding a mirror. And he looks at himself, and before we actually see him, we see the reactions of the doctor and the nurse, and they're all horrified. Mm-hmm. And then he freaks out, runs out into the hallway, and because it's Gotham, the sky is raining, it's lightning, and Grace is out there and sees him.
She freaks out, faints.
Also, I don't know if this was another deliberate homage, but that scene is also very similar to the 89 movie when the Joker's girlfriend shows up for the first time and sees him. Like she's dressed the same, she's carrying a lot of the same stuff, collapses. And then Harvey sees her reaction. We see that his left side of his face is all blue and matted. Now, I got a question for you. So he's in an explosion. We can assume the chemical is what dyes his face. What the hell dyes his hair and makes it grow longer?
That's a question for the Joker.
Right? Yeah, because it doesn't make any sense. Like you would think, okay, if you get your hair would burn, it would be gone.
Like we see in Dark Knight.
Yeah, like that makes a lot more sense. But yeah, in this, it's just, it gets dyed. The fuck?
I think all these chemical plants are like cosmetic companies.
Oh, they probably are.
And it's like this, it's like, you know, the plot of the 2002 Batwoman movie? Or not Batwoman, Catwoman movie?
I have actually never seen that.
Congratulations.
Yeah,
You've saved yourself 2 hours of life.
I really don't think I need to see it.
You're good.
Okay, thank you.
To give you the short run, it's the villain has like a cosmetics chain.
Oh, Jesus.
She almost has like enough plastic surgery. She has so much plastic surgery that she can't feel anything in her body. And that gives her like super strength.
Like Renard from The World's Not Enough. Like she's like numb, so nothing affects her.
It's not numb. It's just like her skin is super hard and
God.
We'll save that for another podcast.
Yeah.
Catwoman.
And you know what's really sad though? That was what, 2003 when that movie came out?
Yeah, somewhere around there.
Yeah, they still haven't figured it out. But
it's only been 13 years.
It's only been 13 years, and they still haven't figured it out.
Much growth.
So that basically wraps up the first half. And it's like, I remember, like, as I watched this, not actually a lot happens. A lot of it's more set up for the next episode, which let's just jump into the next episode.
Yeah, we'll save all our notes for the end.
Yeah, because it's all basically just one long episode. The next episode starts out with the same level of subtlety we've come to expect. And we see door number 222 is the first shot.
Mm-hmm. Oh, also, we should preface this because I didn't know about this. It's 6 months in the future now.
Right, yeah. I had a note about that too. Like, I was a little bit confused, and then they get into it. Yeah, because I have note 222, subtlety. Mm-hmm. And then, so we see Two-Face in the back of a car. We can't really see his face quite so much, but we see he's got his trademark two-tone suit. So in this iteration, it's a black and white contrasting suit. Cool looking suit. Should get one. And then, so we see, okay, he already has his suit. He's already got twin goons. So it starts out a little bit confusing. Like, where do these guys come from? How do you get this stuff set up? And that's when it's explained in a few minutes that it's 6 months in the future. So they're robbing a bookie establishment for Thorne. Mm-hmm. And as they pull up, Harvey pulls out the coin and flips it. And it lands scar side up, so he decides they're going to go in. I have a note about the coin. I think we'll save it to the end, though. We're talking about his character in general.
Okay.
Yeah, so they go in and rob the place. One of the goons goes to steal a ring off of one of the patrons, one of the customers, and Two-Face stops him and says, wait, hang on, we have to let the coin decide. And he flips it. I think it comes up good, right? So he
good side, so he can't take it. He has
to leave it, yeah. So we're establishing that he has a code of sorts, that all decisions have to be made by the coin, and the coin decides whether it's a good action or a bad action.
Which is kind of the trademark style of Two-Face that you see through most of his iterations.
So I guess the note I had, which I thought, that's very much a traditional Two-Face thing, right? He always has this duality, or the coin makes decisions for him. What I thought was interesting is we spend so much time setting up his character, and we go into explaining kind of the split personality and why that manifests itself after he gets his face burned. At no point do they establish why he lets the coin make decisions for him.
Right.
And I for some reason, I was inspired to watch Batman Forever after watching this. I made it through the first 15 minutes.
But it's so good.
I actually have a soft spot for it, but rewatching again, I'm like, oh man, there's a lot.
It's my favorite of the 90s.
Well, you're mistaken, but it's better than Batman and Robin.
Exactly.
And it's kind of a good, bad movie, but there's actually a lot of good pieces that I like. We can have a whole episode about why we actually think Batman Forever is pretty good. But in that, when we meet Two-Face, he's already established as Two-Face. So when they establish the rule of the coin, that's just establishing a rule for the character. In this, we're given his background, but we don't establish that rule. So it does feel like it comes out of nowhere here.
Well, I guess the only time we see it is we see it in the dream sequence.
Yeah.
And that's kind of just the icon of Big Bad Harv is the coin.
It's a visual cue that he's in that personality. But at no point do we establish his code around the coin. So it does come off as not being motivated by anything. And he has a little bit of a explanation at the end of the episode. But I think because we're so used to, especially The Dark Knight, where it is very well established where the coin comes from, and there's a whole scene that explains Two-Face's specific moral code. This time around, there's not one, so that was interesting. But we do establish that's his thing. Flips the coin, makes a decision.
That's how he makes every decision.
Every decision, yeah. Mm-hmm. And so after he robs the place, we're back at Thorne's hideout, and we've learned that Harvey's been attacking him for 6 months, and of course he stole
like $400,000 or something.
No, $2,000.
It has to be more than that.
I think it was only $2,000. I have $2K listed here. I think he's stolen $2 million overall.
No, because that's the bounty.
Oh yeah, he only stole like $2,000 from the bookie. And a crate of silver dollars, which will come into play later.
Very important silver dollars.
Very important, the silver dollars.
They're collectible.
They are. He's got a collector's side to him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's his third personality. If the coin lands on its side.
The collector?
Yeah. I got to hold on to these things.
What would happen if the coin landed on its side?
Probably just go crazy.
Would he just shit himself?
Yeah, maybe.
I want to see that now. I want to see what happens to him.
So we see Thorne, and he's puts the $2 million bounty on Two-Face's head, trying to get the other criminals of the underworld to chase after him. And then it jumps to another dream sequence that is very reminiscent of the first one. And so when I was watching it, I thought it was Harvey's dream sequence.
I think it's deliberate, yeah, because it does set itself up like it's going to be Harvey's dream sequence.
And you find out it's Bruce, and you see Harvey running. Batman is chasing after him, trying to help. He stops on a rope bridge, and as he reaches out for Batman's hand, he falls through the bridge. When Batman looks over the edge, he sees not Harvey, but his parents.
Tying it right back in there. He failed Harvey, he failed his parents. That
and even Thomas Wayne says,
why couldn't you save us? Why something like that?
Yeah, why didn't you save us?
Yeah, his guilt is compounded. And
but also, fun little fact, I don't know if you saw this. In that scene, usually Kevin Conroy does the voice of Thomas, but for this one, they had Richard Dole, Harvey, did the voice of Thomas Wayne. Yeah, fun little.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, fun little connections.
Yeah. And after Batman wakes up in the cave, we see that his desk is littered with books on psychology and schizophrenia and multiple personalities. And we see that although he can't find Harvey, he's not stopping the hunt. He's trying to, you've talked about this a lot. He's trying to cure Harvey.
Right.
And especially because he's a friend. I mean, we've seen before that he really is trying to cure his villains. In this case, he really wants to because it's also his friend. But again, it's not that he's just trying to catch him, but he's trying to help him.
Right.
More than anything else. And then from there, we go off and we see Grace. She's still mourning. She's still upset. She doesn't know where Harvey is. Mm-hmm. She's really frustrated. And then Candace, Thorne's assistant, second in command, whatever, shows up disguised as a cop and tells Grace, if Harvey shows up, we just want to help him. Push this button and we'll come get him.
We have it's a tracker.
Yeah,
we'll come find you if you when you run into him, because he will come and find you again.
And so then Candace leaves and her henchman, it's like, oh, how do you know he's going to come back? And she says, well, they always come back. Very conveniently, he happens to be coming back right at that moment. Pulls up outside, looks all sad.
Well, I thought, no, he's driving by a bridal store.
No, that's later on.
Is it? Okay.
No, I made a specific note that it's like that super convenient time is, they always come back around the corner, window rolls down, and he's right back there.
So we jump back to Two-Face, and he's at his hideout, the something Deuces.
Something related.
Everything is Two related. Wild Deuces Club. And the goons are asking, like, oh, do you want to go see... God, I'm never going to remember her name. Grace. Yeah. I don't know why I keep wanting to call her Sarah. Grace.
Sarah, why?
I don't know. He wants to go see Grace. The goons are like, oh, you should go see her. We can go pick her up. If you want, we can bring her here. He flips the coin. It lands on the scarred side. He's like, no, we have other important things to do. We're gonna finish Thorn off.
A side note, in that scene, Harvey's splitting up the money. Mm-hmm. He takes some and he puts some of the cash in his wallet. And he has a Two-Face credit card. He has a credit card with Two-Face as the name on it.
Oh, that's awesome.
Which means that as Two-Face, he applied for a credit card at a bank.
And got it.
You know what? We tease the banks of Gotham. There are so many criminals that is probably an occupation you can fill out on your application. Mm-hmm. Just criminal.
I mean, it's probably the same as
yield.
Just like entrepreneur.
That's true. That's probably what he put.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just not as bad as the Bat credit card, but
I hope there's just one bank that's like the criminal bank.
Well, it's a mob bank.
Yeah.
You make a good business giving out credit cards to
wasn't that
criminals.
Wasn't that a plot in one of the Batman movies? Because they were trying to go after one of the mob banks, and
in the Dark Knight, they're
right. Okay.
Yeah, they're going, but that's played real. I don't think the banks of Gotham in Christopher Nolan's world were taking credit card applications from supervillains
using their supervillain name.
Using the supervillain name, yeah. What if he has a photo on there too, just like half smiling? I hope he does. Two-tone credit card.
So yeah, he's splitting up the money. He's yelling at his goons because they just want their money, as goons do,
as he would.
And we jump back.
The goons are asking him what he's going to do with Thorn, because at this point, I guess they've hit all of his spots, all the places they can, all of his businesses, his fronts,
all the ones that deal with twos.
Yes,
Gemini.
Yeah, it was Club 22, the Gemini something.
I think it was a casino. I think Gemini Casino.
Yeah, and like Two's company. So what I love is that in the span of 6 months, Harvey has taken out all of Thorn's two-based spots. All of it, any like front he has that has twos in it. How did Bruce not know where to go to find him if that's the only places he's hitting?
He's still looking at the best in Harvey. He still doesn't see Two-Face. He still sees Harvey.
He's just still in denial. What I do love, though, is the goons ask him, what are you going to do with Thorn now that we're done hitting him? And Two-Face says, let's just say I'm going to do exactly to him what he did to me. Now, that phrase doesn't make any sense. Because usually if you say, let's just say that I'm going to, that means you're going to follow that with some sort of euphemism. But he says, no, I'm going to do exactly to him what he did to me. Doesn't make any goddamn sense. I was really bothered by that.
Well, yeah, it doesn't make sense. But I think what he was going for was...
Well, I know what he was going for, but like no one says that. It's like, oh, what are you going to do? Well, let's just say I'm going to murder him. Like...
wink, wink, nudge, nudge.
Yeah, there's no subtlety there. That's exactly what he's going to do.
Well, it's like his two sides talking. Like the Dent side is like... well, you know what we're going to do with him. And then the Two-Face side's like, we're just going to kill him.
Just having a conversation with himself.
Right.
God damn it.
From there, we jump to Thorn's attorney's office, right?
We have a brief thing in the Batcave.
Oh, okay.
Where we learn all the places that Harvey's hit.
Right, all the places we just named.
Yeah, and Batman decides that Two-Face is now going to go after Thorn. So then he leaves. He jumps on the Bat-Bike. First appearance of the Bat-Bike. And
he's got the cool bat helmet.
I did make a note about that too. Bat-Bike, exclamation point. Helmet, exclamation
Always
point.
important.
Always got to have that helmet on. And it also gave us confirmation from the Forgotten that is Batman's extra car garage that he drives through.
Oh, okay.
Because he drives through that garage to get out. Because that's very important. We keep track of these little details.
It is.
These little questions
when we do
the geography of the Batcave.
A perfect rendering of Wayne Manor.
I like how you say we. It's going to be you.
When I make the perfect rendering top to bottom of Wayne Manor and the Batcave.
The only one of us here who has any sort of artistic talents. It's all going to be you there, buddy.
You can do like SketchUp.
No.
Okay.
Not really. I'll let you do it.
So we jump to the Thorn's attorney's office in a similar scene.
Did you see what his attorney's name is?
Mm-mm. Is it something with twos?
Doubleday.
Of course.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Mm-hmm. You think Thorn would have fired anyone in his payroll who had a 2 related to him, would have pulled out of any business that had a 2 in it.
He should have just jumped to 3s.
He should have, yeah. He would have been totally safe. Hey, let's change everything to odd numbers.
And then Two-Face wouldn't know what to do.
No, he'd be so completely lost.
Then I hope the Riddler comes in, and that's like his thing.
Three-Face shows up.
Yeah.
Like, fuck.
So they're going through the attorney's files. They find all the dirt they need to kind of put Thorn away forever.
Money laundering, all that shit.
Batman shows up, breaks one of the goons' wrists, pretty much.
He does, doesn't he?
You know, just casually, just like 1, 2, pop, pop, he's dead. The other goon is gone. I don't remember where he went, but he's not there.
Maybe he knocked him out?
No, because he comes back.
I don't know.
So one of the goons is gone. Batman has a heart-to-heart with Two-Face. He's like, go to Grace.
Yeah.
I remembered it. Go see Grace.
Almost gets him, too. Almost gets him.
You see kind of him turning back to normal, and I think the voice kind of drops a little bit.
I think it does, yeah.
And then when the second goon comes back in, he's like, it's Batman. That's when Two-Face is like, oh, right, I'm evil now. Yeah. I need to stay evil.
Sucker punches Batman.
So I was watching this in poor lighting. Did he get shot?
No. So
what causes him to have his, because I just saw him get kicked.
It's suggested from this point on that he has a broken rib when he goes into the final fight.
Oh, okay, so, that's what it is.
But I'm not sure when that happened, because Two-Face sucker punches him, they run out, and then Batman kind of dazed, chases out after them, and then gets shoved and gets incapacitated by a mop bucket, a cleaning cart. I think that we can officially say that is the lamest thing that's incapacitated Batman now. Worse than by cleaning cart. And then he passes out.
From what I remember, he grabs onto Harvey, and Harvey kicks him
kicks him.
Yeah, he kicks him in the stomach.
Oh, okay. So maybe that's when he damaged his rib.
But I feel like he's had a lot worse than a kick to the stomach. And when he falls, he didn't get amnesia. So that's good.
That's good. Yeah. He does just pass out in the hallway and get woken up by the janitor. Has a little buddy moment with the janitor and then leaves.
Harvey, it's just dust here. I think the janitor wanted something more romantic.
Ooh.
We jump to Thorne's office, right?
No. Oh, so when Harvey's leaving, Batman grabs his coat and tears away the pocket, and we see that Harvey is stashed away at the Wild Deuce Casino. Yeah. Again, why the fuck didn't Batman go there in the first place?
You don't know how many things in Gotham have 2s in the name.
He's the world's greatest detective. He had 6 months to investigate everything with a 2 in it.
That's a lot of stuff to go through in Gotham.
I call bullshit.
We have already named 3, just owned by one mob boss. Who knows what the Penguin owns, or what Falcone owns if he's in this universe, or what was his name, Stormwell?
Not
Stromwell.
Isn't it Stromwell?
That's from... Is it?
Well, whatever. We'll get to it. But anyways...
I'm thinking Cromwell is the Halloween Town family.
Okay. Oh, fine.
Happy October, everybody.
But yeah, so Two-Face hiding out the most obvious place possible. And then...
Oh, yeah, he calls for Grace.
Oh, that's right. He calls Grace. She agrees to meet him, and she pushes the button.
Yeah, activates the tracker, meets him at the club, and which
is the setup with the, split down the middle. One side is, nice and clean, the other side is... all dark and dreary and broken up.
Right.
Yeah.
And he's doing his best Phantom of the Opera impression.
Yeah. He's got the weird drape over his face. I don't quite get it.
But we have a very intimate moment between the two of them.
Very intimate.
Where she, Harvey, I still love you. I know you're still in there. And he gives I like his speech about how kind of the coin now dictates everything.
Yeah. We finally get his philosophy on the coin that everything is based around chance. I just kind of felt like we needed something earlier to explain why the coin was being used.
Yeah,
we can get at the end, and for me, it doesn't quite work. But
so right as he's kind of falling back into Harvey's voice, he's kind of giving up the Two-Face persona. Thorne comes in and ruins everything, as he always does.
As he does, just an asshole.
So Thorne kind of puts the blame on Grace. And that's when you see him snap. You see Two-Face snap. And he's kind of stuck in between these two worlds. I mean, he's always kind of in these worlds, but now there's I feel like that was kind of the last straw for him, because that was his last connection to Harvey.
Yeah, so he goes full Two-Face. I think, Batman shows up, everyone's fighting. Thorne gets trapped under a chandelier, and Harvey grabs
a Tommy gun.
A Tommy gun. He's pointing
very important, because there are so many Tommy guns in this episode.
In the universe in general. Everyone loves their Tommy guns. Those drum mags, man, they're fantastic. And so he's going to shoot. He's deciding whether he's going to shoot Thorne or not. And he pulls out his coin, flips it, and just so perfectly, the box of silver dollars right next to Batman.
Who would have guessed they came back?
Grabs a fistful, throws them at Harvey, who then freaks out and can't figure out
wasn't that the same ending of...
It is the same ending as Batman Forever.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, well, because
except Tommy Lee Jones falls to his death.
Yeah. quite a bit different in that regards. Yeah, there are a few things that made it from the cartoon into Forever, which is kind of fun. We've talked a lot about seeing moments from the Tim Burton movies influence the show, and now we get to see where the show started to influence subsequent adaptations.
Right.
But yeah, it is the exact same ending, but way less deadly.
So as he's searching for the coin, Grace kind of falls on her knees and has kind of one last moment with Harvey as he's lost himself completely. We see him carried away by the police, and Batman and Gordon have a nice little interaction of like, do you think he'll ever be the same? And he's like, love will find a way, as Batman says.
Yeah, where there's love, there's hope, is what he says.
And then,
which I think is funny because Batman has no love or hope.
Right.
Yeah.
He's kind of against all of those things.
Yeah, a little bit.
And then he flips the coin into the fountain, and it lands with the
heads,
the good side up.
Same thing happened to Batman Forever, too. But I mean, that covers the Two-Face episodes. Like, important episodes, because Two-Face is one of the seminal Batman villains. One of the biggest ones. I'd say maybe second behind. No, I'd say like if you look at the most famous villains, obviously the Joker.
Joker's number one.
I'd say Catwoman's probably number two. Like people who just know of Catwoman. I'd say Two-Face, Riddler kind of fall in that same sort of category.
Yeah. I mean, pretty much anyone who's kind of been in the movie.
That made a huge thing. So I did do a little bit of research on the history of Two-Face because I think there's kind of some interesting stuff here. So first appearance in Detective Comics number 66 in August 1942. So he goes way back.
He's one of the first.
Yeah, way back at the beginning. I mean, he was one of the villains created by Bob Kane and Bill Finger way back in the day, based off of Jekyll and Hyde, unsurprisingly, specifically the 1931 film version of it. And originally his name was actually Harvey Kent.
Yep.
Okay, you saw the same thing.
That, yeah.
And then they changed it to a Dent to avoid confusion with Superman. And he kind of disappeared from the comics for a long time because I think he wasn't as kid-friendly or as gimmicky.
Well, I don't know if you saw this in your research, when he would steal stuff, the coin back at that point was used to represent what he would use the money for.
Oh, I didn't know that. No.
If it landed heads, he would donate everything that he stole.
Oh.
If it landed tails, he would keep it.
That's really interesting. I'm kind of bummed that disappears because that...
I feel like, I don't know when, I'm assuming that was probably closer to the 60s because that's very like comic codey.
That is, yeah. But I like that idea though, because it shows that he's not purely evil. It further highlights the contrast in him now. It's too bad that kind of disappeared. It would have been interesting to see it come back. I think he wasn't utilized for a lot kind of up until like 71. I think Dennis O'Neil brought him back. And then it was after Frank Miller's Year One when his background was changed a little bit to that he was kind of more a tragic hero at that point. So that's when it started introducing the idea of him having like an alcoholic, abusive father, and he struggled with bipolar disorder and paranoia.
Right. This was the time when everyone was getting the very sad backstories.
Yeah, everyone was getting much more sympathetic backstories. And, and in Year One, he's an ally to both Batman and Gordon at one point even thinks that he might be Batman, except for he doesn't have the financial resources. And then I'd say the quintessential, the best Two-Face arc out there is probably The Long Halloween, which I also think is the best Batman comic ever. I've read that more times than I can possibly count. I love that story so much. And we were kind of deciding beforehand, we're not going to go into spoiler details on it in case people haven't read the comic. You absolutely should. If you like Batman at all, you've never read The Long Halloween, it's the best one to read. I don't know.
And this is the season to do it, everyone.
This is the season to do it. It's like a very noir murder mystery. It's something that they still have never really done in a movie adaptation yet. I mean, a lot of elements of that comic made it into The Dark Knight, especially. But in that one, Harvey doesn't have schizophrenia. He doesn't have multiple personalities. And I actually think that makes him more interesting. I know his original origin incorporates that. But I felt like as I was watching these episodes too, it simplifies his background a little bit. I think it makes him less interesting because it's not that he's driven mad by circumstance, but he's already kind of crazy. Whereas I think it's much more interesting when he is trying, like he's legitimately trying to do the right thing, like he is in The Long Halloween, like he is in The Dark Knight. And he has a little bit of a dark side to him, but it's circumstance that pushes him over the edge, that pushes him to the point where he has to go outside the law, or his perception of law and order changes as a result of the influence of the other criminals and Batman on him. That's kind of the version I'm more used to. And I think I like it better, actually.
Well, I mean, I feel like you bring up, I don't think this relates to Long Halloween, but you bring up a good point of he needs to go outside of the law, because obviously that's Batman's whole thing. He's doing what the law won't or can't. And kind of jumping back to the dream sequence we talked about earlier, I think it's very important to think about, because when Batman was like feeling pressure and feeling anxiety, he just put he just put the cowl back on. And that was kind of his way of not suppressing, but pushing out the anger and pushing out the aggression.
Well, it's his outlet. And
it's interesting to think in this story, if Harvey didn't bottle that up for so long, or if he did have that outlet, he very much could have been a Batman figure. And then you brought up the coin a lot. Did you go into kind of where the coin originated?
I did kind of cursory research.
Okay. Well, from what I remember researching, you talked about his dad. His dad was an abusive drunk. And before he would beat him, he would flip a coin to decide if he was going to hit Harvey or not.
That's super fucked up.
Right. And what's more fucked up is Harvey, years later, this is when the dual personality kind of kicked in, at least in this. I think this was an early 90s comic where they went into this side of the father story. He wakes up in a cold sweat after remembering one of these memories, and he realizes that his dad was using a trick coin. So he was always going to beat him. And that's where the idea of using the trick coin always came from, that you see in The Dark Knight.
Oh, that's super dark.
When he says, I leave it up to chance.
Yeah.
And then, there's no such thing as chance. And he shows...
that does sound kind of familiar, because I read the novelization of The Dark Knight after it came out, and there was... Some of that was discussed when they were talking about Harvey's background. It's not there in the movie. But there are a lot of great Two-Face stories out there. I mean, again... Go read The Long Halloween. Dark Victory 2. Have you read Dark Victory, which is the sequel?
I've not.
It's actually really good. So the first one's based off of a murder mystery. Gangsters are dying in Long Halloween. In Dark Victory, it's after Two-Face's transformation. Not really a spoiler there. We know that's going to happen. And now there's someone else that's hunting and killing cops. So it's kind of got the same structure to it. It also introduces Dick Grayson, and it actually perfectly explains why a colorful character like Robin works with Batman. It's one of the few times I've seen it done really well. But that's another great Two-Face story. He has an appearance in The Dark Knight Returns. Have you ever read No Man's Land from the 90s?
I think I own it. I don't think I've read it yet.
It's worth reading. It's long. I mean, it was a big event. I mean, I somewhere I have like the collected volumes, like 4 or 5, like the big, thick back volumes. But it's a really interesting dynamic. I mean, the quick summary of it. So Gotham's hit by a huge earthquake. The city's abandoned, but some people stay behind. And some of the criminals that do stay behind conquer territories. And elements of it were incorporated into The Dark Knight Rises. Yet another example of Nolan taking some interesting Batman stuff and oversimplifying it for his third movie. But that one's worth reading. Two-Face is a big role in that. Hush is also really good.
Yeah, because I remember moments of Hush where people thought that it was Harvey.
Yeah, he's a character, and they do a really great job with him. And then I kind of stopped reading comics actively kind of after that. By the time we were getting towards the New 52, I haven't read a lot of that stuff, so I'm not sure what's been happening with him recently. I'd say at this point, most famously played by Aaron Eckhart in The Dark Knight.
Absolutely.
Did you know that he was close to being in the 60s show? They almost did Two-Face in the 60s TV show.
Oh, I guess they didn't.
This would have been amazing.
He was in.
Would have been amazing. It was going to be played by Clint Eastwood.
Yes.
In the 60s. Perfect fucking casting.
He can still play it today.
He can still play it today, and he'd be fantastic. But the difference was, instead of being a lawyer, he was a news anchor who's disfigured by exploding television.
Makes sense.
Makes sense for that show. But it was deemed not kid-friendly enough. And then I guess since then, they've adapted that storyline into the 60s set comic. I just haven't read it yet. Also played by Billy D. Williams in Tim Burton's movie. I'm still disappointed we never got to see Billy D. play Two-Face. He was Harvey, but not Two-Face.
Oh, got it. Okay, sorry. Too many three named names.
Too many.
Tommy Lee Jones.
Tommy Lee Jones, Billy D. Williams. So, I mean, we should probably wrap up pretty soon here on Two-Face. But one thing I wanted to talk to you about a little bit is pretty much across the board, we've come to the agreement that the animated series is the best version of pretty much all these characters. The best version of Batman, best version of the Joker. I actually don't think this is the best version of Two-Face.
Tommy Lee Jones?
Of course it's Tommy Lee Jones. Yeah, I mean, his scene chewing is just incomparable. But I actually think the best version of Two-Face is The Dark Knight.
Interesting, because you're a Dark Knight, not hater, but you're not a supporter of Dark Knight. I'm extremely critical of Dark Knight Rises, but there's a lot of issues I have with The Dark Knight. I think one thing they do really well is Harvey's storyline in that, just because they set him up really well as like sympathetic and charming. You can see parallels between him and Bruce, but he's the lighter side of things. Right.
It's also very closely adapted from The Long Halloween. So the one issue I had with The Dark Knight is that it took the Harvey storyline, which is critical of The Long Halloween, but took away the noir trappings, the noir setting, which I still really want to see done in a movie. So now you can't really do a strict adaptation of it because it's kind of been done. But I think that's the best version. I think as a character, he makes the most sense. That moment between him and the Joker after he's had his face burned and Rachel's died, where the Joker explains to him that chaos is the only real reigning force in the world, that you can't have order, it's only chaos, and that actually changes Harvey's mentality and inspires him to become Two-Face. It all works. As I was watching this, that's what I was thinking of. For me, this only kind of works so well. It's a little too simple, whereas I think The Dark Knight does a great job with it. I don't know. What do you think about that? What do you think this is the best version of Two-Face?
Well, I mean, I definitely agree with all the points that you're talking about, where there are holes in this where they kind of, I mean, they don't explain the coin. They kind of go through the trauma, but beating a kid up isn't a lot of trauma.
Yeah, they give an explanation, but I don't.
Yeah, and I feel like in The Dark Knight, not only having your fiance die, but listening to her explode, is kind of that'll shake up anyone. And I think that gives a much more kind of reinforcement onto why he became Two-Face. It's you see the moment that he becomes Two-Face, and I think that's more interesting in The Dark Knight.
Yeah, I think for me here, the schizophrenia thing feels like a cheat. I think it's much more interesting when he starts out sane. He starts completely rational and is driven there. I mean, I guess that's one thing that I do like about The Dark Knight is that it's kind of the whole thing with the Joker, right? It's sometimes one bad day.
All it takes is one bad day.
One bad day, yeah. I mean, I actually had never really thought about it until prepping for this episode, but that element of the killing joke really is present in The Dark Knight. That it's basically one really shitty day for Harvey in terms of the Two-Face. Hey, but you know what? I haven't been watching Gotham, so I don't know if that version of Harvey Dent is the best.
Because he's played by that guy from Fired Up.
I love that guy. I don't know how to pronounce his last name, but Nicholas D'Agosto?
I don't know.
D'Agosto? He's awesome. He's actually, I think, great casting for a young Harvey Dent. I just refuse to watch that show because it is fucking garbage.
I can only see him from Fired Up because that was kind of the only movie I watched in high school.
By the way, for our listeners, if you've never seen Fired Up, quick tangent here. It is a cheerleader comedy about two football players who go to cheer camp to try and pick up girls. It is so much better than that premise. It's worth mentioning. It is actually straight up incredibly funny.
Yeah, I became a cheerleader the weekend that movie came out, and I hadn't seen the movie yet. But everyone was blaming that movie for me making the transition to cheerleading.
I would have considered it too.
If
I could have done it. Their bromance is just legendary in that movie. It's really fucking good, guys. Go check it out. But getting back to our topic.
A lot of media plugs this episode. We got a lot of comic books. We had that plug. I feel like I plugged a movie earlier.
I don't even know.
I don't know.
I'll find out when I go back and review it and edit it.
We've talked a lot about a lot of stuff today.
Yeah, it's been good.
We've covered a lot of topics. Mostly Two-Face, but
mostly Two-Face. Anything else you want to talk about in regards to Two-Face?
No, I feel like we hit all the points.
Well, so that'll do it for this week's episode.
Yeah.
Next week will be just 2 normal episodes. It's Never Too Late.
Yeah. And I've got a Batman in my basement.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I'm excited for both
got
those.
Got a lot to talk about for that one.
A lot to talk about. So, yeah, I think that'll about do it. Cameron, where can we find you?
You can find me at Cameron Dexter on everything.
Yeah, and I'm at Lordifer for the podcast. We're at Timm Talk Pod on Twitter and Gmail and Facebook and Instagram. Go find us on Instagram. We need more followers.
No, we're fine.
Yeah, if we get more followers, I can make Cameron do more cool art.
No, I'll do more stuff.
Yeah, that'll be great. Thank you once again to Olga Satnik for being our audio engineer. We're recording down at the podcast booth at the Nerdist School, so go check out nerdistschool.com, and that'll do it.
Yeah, thanks everyone for listening.
Thanks.